Hi, my name is Paula and I'm a new mom. Welcome to We've Probably Been There, a podcast by First Moms Club about how we really dealt and truly felt about everything motherhood. No BS, no judgment, and no advice, from us at least. Welcome to the club. This is the story of how we got through survivor mode and what we did to get some shut-eye. Sleep. So sleep has to be one of the most talked about subjects in motherhood. Not only I think it's one of the most volatile things in motherhood. It never stays the same. It constantly changes. But I think newborn sleep is a whole different ballgame because you have no idea what you're doing. So I remember when I took Maya home back from the hospital and, you have to practice safe sleep and put her in her bassinet every night and feed her every 2-3 hours and wake up and all that jazz. And it went pretty well for like the first couple of weeks because they're practically in a coma when they're a newborn anyway. So, but then they start to realize, oh, well, when she would get fed and I would put her on my chest, it's much more comfortable to be on me than it is alone in my big bassinet. So every time I put her down, she would start to cry. And it wasn't getting any better to the point where she would either kind of like sleep on me for a while. I wasn't getting any sleep. It was challenging. And so what I decided to do is I said, listen, the only way I'm going to get some sleep is if she sleeps in my bed with me. So we would put Maya, so not directly, at like 2 weeks old, but when she got a little bit older, we put her in our bed next to us in the middle. And I made sure that she was on top of the covers and the covers never came on top of her. And I was sleeping better, but I wasn't completely in a deep sleep ever because, you have a newborn in your bed. But that was the only way I could get sleep. So until she was 6 months old, that's what we did. We co-slept. Fast forward 2 years, did exactly the same thing with Maddie because that's all I knew and that's what worked for me. So I know it's different for you guys. So I'm sitting here today with Dom, mom of two, Catherine, mom of two, and Bianca, mom of two. So let's start with Catherine because I know that Catherine's experience was a little bit more challenging than mine. So tell us what happened. It was with your second, if I'm not mistaken, that was more challenging, or I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, with both. I think with Olivia, we had it bad, but the second just like took us by storm. And I was shocked because I'm like, okay, here I am, second time I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
This time it's gonna go better. It's gonna go well. And like off the bat, it was never going well. And then come the famous 4-month sleep regression, we just got like hit by a train and everything unraveled. She was just waking up at that point every 45 minutes to an hour. And it got unsustainable. Like there's one night where my husband and I went to bed at 5 a.m. and got up at 7 a.m. And that's where we knew that like something was off here. So definitely.
And was she were you persistent in keeping her in her bassinet?
I mean, this time around, I think the first time I was like more of a stickler about it, just because you're like, I want to get this right, and you have no clue what you're doing. And it's like, let's follow these guideposts, these guidelines, and they'll help us. But I think the second time around, it's like, your child best.
Yeah.
You know what you need. It's not like a book or that's going to help you. So it was more survival mode, and we just needed to sleep. And so there are times with the second where out of desperation, she would just come sleep with us. Like sometimes I feel like it was like second nature. We would just put her in the bed because we needed like those 45 minutes or an hour of sleep. But it completely unraveled, and we were looking for that 4-month benchmark to like re-regulate her. We needed to reset the whole process. And come 4 months, that's when the pediatrician was sort of like, you could start sleep training now. The day she hit 4 months, we literally sleep trained her. And in hindsight, I realized like we never gave her the tools to succeed, and we never set her up to sleep properly. And it just showed me that the second time around, even though like I had my babies close in age, it showed me as a parent, every child's different, and you still really don't know like what you're doing. You think you're going to come back at it and have this experience, but like half of it is out the window because you forget about half of it. It's not as fresh. It's like newborn months to me are survival mode. And one thing that really resonated with us was that you can't really spoil a newborn. Like I remember, the pediatrician saying that, or you'll take, prenatal classes and they'll say that. It's survival mode, whatever it takes
Whatever works.
to get by day, minute by minute, mental health, like whatever works for you. And I mean, that's what we were doing, right? The first 3 months till the point where you get to the 4-month sleep regression and like it unraveled because whatever was working before wasn't working now. And I think it was like a relief for us to get to that point because we could start regulating this, whatever this mess was or wasn't working, but yeah, it just was pure survival mode with the first and the second, but the regression really hit us bad this time around.
So the regression started at 4 months.
3. Okay. 3 months, and I think like that's.
But up till then, she was sleeping fine in her bassinet.
No, it was, but like I'm saying, like at 4 months, it was sometimes I'd put her into her bassinet.
Yeah.
She'd wake up at every transfer, which was maddening.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about, like you just hit the bed, you think you hit, you think you're gonna fall asleep, and boom.
Yeah.
There she is again.
Yeah.
We'd have 5-minute increments, 45-minute increments, an hour. If we got like a 3-hour stretch, that was like a facelift. I call it a facelift because it's like I'm sleeping 3-hour increments.
So take me through you'd put her down. She'd start to cry 45 minutes later. You'd go back and pick her up. Like, what would you do? Like, take me through your actions.
And we all have our things, right? Like, I say we have our bag of tricks and whatever works to make them fall asleep, right? In the newborn months.
Yeah.
And so with my both girls, I nurse to sleep.
Yeah.
And that's my only one thing in my bag of tricks. If I don't have it, I don't got nothing.
Of course.
And with Sienna being the second, like, sometimes it wouldn't work anymore. And this is what I found fascinating with the second. And you're always like, everybody tells you, well, each child is different. It's really true. With Olivia, that one would work every single time. I'd nurse to sleep. And I would get, 3 to 4 hours at that age. With Sienna, I'd nurse to sleep. I'd transfer, still asleep, and then she'd get up.
Wake up.
And I think, just coming out of it now, my frustration, like how I was feeling with Sienna was like, why is this not working with the second?
Right.
Why? Like why? And as I said, if I don't got this, I got nothing for me. That was my one thing.
But you did this for how long? Like
nursing to sleep till 4 months.
No, but how long did you like carry on with the frustration of putting her down, picking her back up, putting her down? Like how long did that take?
I mean, easily a month, I'd say.
Yeah.
Easily a month. I was in that tornado.
Yeah.
Like maybe a month and a half.
And how did that impact your mind and your family's mind? Like how did it impact your life? Like how did not only not sleeping yourself, but having the on top of it having the frustrations of asking yourself, why isn't this working? I don't know if you asked yourself, was there any guilt there? Like, I don't know, like what were you thinking?
Tons of guilt. I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. That's how I felt. I'm doing something wrong. It's not working. What I hate about you feel alone in this. I think especially with the second one, when there's one kid, you're two to troubleshoot. When there's two and we had them close in age, well, I can't ask my husband who's working and getting up not only for a big day of work the next day, but also to take care of a toddler. I can't ask him at those wee hours of the morning to troubleshoot with me. So the second time around, that was harder for me. And it was more like, again, what am I doing wrong? I'm alone in this. And then I find you're sleep deprived. There's also hormonal imbalance when you're postpartum in the newborn days. And you're just, I was spinning a lot. And I find, I'm not a big fan of the newborn days. Those who know me know that. What I hate about it, it's a lot of troubleshooting. And I felt like I'm just troubleshooting alone and trying new things. And literally, it was maddening. This didn't happen with Olivia because the nursing to sleep would work. Like I would just we'd be there bouncing her for like 20 minutes in our arms. Which I think is like cliches of, like moms rocking their kids to sleep, but like for her to fall asleep and being like, we would look up like how to transfer a child and, watch YouTube videos. And, in hindsight, like hindsight's 20/20 vision, I now know what was going on and maybe I don't want to say what we were doing wrong. But like, I feel like I say this each time, like if I had another kid, I'd know what to do now, but you don't, because with each kid, it's completely different. And literally what worked for one will not work for the other. A month and a half of troubleshooting.
And how did you know that it was going to end? at that, because a lot of us, I can also speak for myself, like, I keep telling myself all the time, like, this is going to pass, it's just temporary, and that's what keeps me going. How did you know that this was going to end, this nightmare was going to end? How did you know it was going to end at that time? Because you had said it at 4 months. At 4 months, there was a month that it was really bad, and then you started sleep training. So how did you know that it was going to take a month?
Or were you even thinking this will never end?
Yeah.
Oh,
maybe that was part of the, when you're tired and sleep deprived.
You don't see an out,
It could happen.
You don't see an out. Everybody's like, the days are long, the seasons are short. But when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it, you don't see an out. And you think, like, nobody can understand what I'm going through. Right. Each problem is so, particular to a child, like even what you read online. But I didn't think it'd be...
Did anyone around you or a stranger, did anyone tell you something that helped you at one point?
I think it takes a village, right? Mm-hmm. And you pick and choose what resonates with you and what sticks with you. And that's why, like having community, having prior mothers it definitely helped. But I knew at that point that we were in such a tizzy that we needed to reset and like re-regulate and start from a clean slate. Yeah. And, going back, like this was a month and a half ago, but it was very hard for me. The subject of sleep training is really delicate, but it was this time around really hard for me to decide to do that to my 4-month-old because she felt so babyish to me, like so tiny and so little. But at that point, time back to sleep, it's about like, we're calling this is sleep survival. It's about mental health. And it's about like, if you can't care for yourself, you can't care for your baby, right? The whole oxygen mask. Metaphor. So we needed to do it for survival mode, going back to survival mode, right? And it's what worked for us. It doesn't mean it's what worked for everybody, but we needed that structure. Like it was just all over the place. How many times I called Paula in desperation, like waving an SOS flag. And like a lot of things for sleep for us were intertwined into like feeding. It's like it's a circle, right? And if there's like one glitch in the circle, it's a domino effect. The rest won't properly work. And so I'm grateful for sleep training because it helped us reset and re-regulate and get like everything in order. So then everything flowed. And since then it took us 2-3 days. And like one night she slept 11 to 12 hours. Wow. And I had this movie moment where I literally woke up, like I jolted out of bed and I was like, what's going on? Because your body gets re-regulated to waking up every hour, and you're like, what just happened? Something went wrong.
Yeah.
Is she alive? Right? Like we are talking about 4 months. She's just out of her newborn days. You worry at that point. It was also really hard for me to like put her into her room that early. Going back to, I'm somebody who really likes to respect the guidelines. I believe they're there for a reason. Mm-hmm. That's just like who I am. And for me to put her in her room at 4 months, that I was really nervous about that. It was really, but we needed it.
I didn't follow any of those guidelines. That's where it was so different. I didn't want to put that pressure on myself to like have to follow these type of books or anything. Like I bought them all and then I said, no, I'm just going to go with what feels natural for me. And I mean, I don't know if it's the best way, but for Christian, when I brought him home, I had him in the bassinet next to me. And my experience was the opposite of yours, because with Christian, it was so difficult. And with Theodore, it was seamless. So it was like, I had him in the bassinet next to me, and I remember looking at him and waking up all night. Is he breathing? Is he breathing? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. So
he was your first, right?
Yes, exactly. So I told my husband, I said, look, we're going to bring him into the bed with us. And he was like, are you sure? I'm worried. What if I squash him? And I was like, no, we'll put barriers around. And then it's just easier for me because I could just put my hand next to him, check. And then when he's crying, because you were saying, feeding, nursing to sleep. Oh, I nursed to sleep 100% with him for the full first year. Like it was just the transfer. He would wake up at the transfer, so it was just easier. And I remember being like, no, and then going back into the chair with him or back into the bed. So like that transfer,
the desperation.
You tried everything slowly. I would even put the softest covers and just hope. And no, it didn't work. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So just having him next to me right there felt like the safest and also the best option for my sanity to actually sleep. And with my second, I had him, I said, I'm going to do this a bit differently and see if it works. And I put him in the bassinet next to me. And then with a toddler running into the room all night, I realized this is not sustainable, so we're going to do things differently. And so I actually ended up putting him in his own crib in his room. He would wake up, I would feed him around like 5 a.m. and he'd go back to sleep for another 3 hours. And it was just so different of an experience between the two.
Yeah.
But I felt guilty because I felt like, am I robbing him of that co-sleeping experience?
Oh, interesting.
Because it was such a nice bonding moment with the first baby.
Oh, wow.
So I was worried that I know.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed it. Like it's bittersweet, right? Part of me is like, this is tough, but it's so beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
And so I still feel to this day, did I rob him of that experience of being in the bed with us and like cozied up together, the three of us, you know? But he slept so well, and I would transfer him, and he would just lie there so peacefully. I'm like, why? Why are you so peaceful? Something's wrong here. Like, but you know, it's wild because it's so different from child to child. And I agree with you. Like, you can't spoil a baby. The bond I have today with my boys, like, I don't think it spoiled them. They that's what they need is love, right?
Well, they're
and just
so
feeling
little.
secure and feeling safe. And I feel like we gave them that.
And I truly believe, like, you'll see, you know, like, on the internet or whatever, like, you'll see, you know, we're mammals, and all mammals, like, when they're born, they there's a reason why they're close to their mother. They need to be close to their mother. Like, why are humans any different, you know? Like, we're still all mammals, and our children need to be close to us. And anyway, I think that's super true. And
think about it. They were in one ecosystem for 9 months, and then you're taking them into another one.
Yeah.
And it's like you need to just set them up with that transfer into from one world to another. So,
and it's funny what you said, because I forgot to mention, actually, with Maya and Maddie, I was side sleeping. You know this.
Yeah.
It was an all you can eat milk buffet all night long for them. I was nursing all night long.
Yeah.
And every time she would unlatch, and I could feel her kind of move around up to the other side and up to the other side all night long for like 4 months for both kids. But then I knew at 6 months, when it's, you know, appropriate, when I knew I wanted to sleep train them, I knew that there was an end, and I knew that at 6 months I was going to sleep train them, and that was going to be the end of that. But you got to do what you got to do, you know. Like, if I didn't do that, I would not have slept. And I can actually confidently say that I never felt sleep deprived with both my children in the morning, because that worked for me. I was sleeping. They were nursing all night, but I was sleeping.
Yeah. For me, sleep survival, what it looked like was mostly co-sleeping as well. But for both my kids, we had the bassinet in our bedroom, right next to our bed. I say our bed, but basically became my
Your
bed.
bed?
My husband is a very light sleeper.
Yeah.
So he was sleeping actually in the guest room. And I was grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because at least one parent was sleeping.
Yeah.
Lucky him.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a dream.
And I was also nursing, and breastfeeding to me was something that was really important.
Okay.
I didn't have a deadline of when the co-sleeping
Would end.
It would
Okay.
stop.
You
or
didn't mind
end.
it. You didn't mind it.
I didn't mind it.
Okay. Because you had your space, you had your, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that at one point what happened, or maybe even before giving birth, something in my mind had a shift. And I simply told myself that I shouldn't put any expectations on myself.
Yeah.
I shouldn't put expectations in terms of what am I going to do tomorrow? What if I'm not capable of arriving at this place on time? It was the pandemic, mind you, so maybe my outing was just the grocery store, so I could go whenever I wanted to go, at least with the curfew.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just really took it moment by moment. I didn't put any pressure on myself, and I think that helped a lot. That's not to say I was sleep deprived. I was tired. I'm not going to make believe that wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I think that internally there wasn't a struggle simply because of my mindset shift.
You were gentle to yourself.
I was gentle to myself. So what sleeping looked like for us was most of the time my babies would fall asleep with me. I was also following the 7 rules of co-sleeping. Okay. I don't remember the 7 rules. But
I don't even know the 7 rules. Yeah, I'm like, literally, I just go by them.
but I was following those.
Yeah.
But basically, it's like no alcohol, no drugs.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure the baby doesn't stay stuck between a wall.
Yeah.
I don't know, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
people can Google it.
Right.
And whenever I felt ready or I needed some space in the bed, I would try to transfer baby into the bassinet, and that was it.
And it was okay. They would stay in the bassinet.
Not always,
Okay.
but sometimes it did work.
Okay.
And when it worked, great.
Yeah.
I was just sleeping, taking all the place in the bed.
Yeah.
And when it didn't work, well, I would just kind of accept it. And I also really enjoyed the skin to skin,
Okay.
the
Oh,
proximity. That felt really nice to me. It was really important to me also as a mother to build that connection with my kids. And I do feel like what I was doing for the sleep arrangement was something that helped with the connection.
Okay.
And such as so many other things you can do
of
as a
course.
mother to build a connection with your kids. But for me, that was one of the things that did help. And co-sleeping like that, I think lasted about, almost a year.
Really?
Almost a year for both kids.
Wow.
I have to say that I think for both kids about around 10 months, I did start slowly transferring them into their own crib in their bedroom. But it wasn't like fixed. It was on and off.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it was nice to sleep with my husband again.
I was gonna say that's like a long time for your husband.
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Do you still live
Well,
here?
for me, it's like only 10 months ago that finally or 10 months, like 8 months ago that I finally got Christian into his bed, like all night. So,
You know what's so interesting
Yeah.
is like sleep takes different like shapes and forms
Yeah.
for everybody.
For sure.
Like it's just so funny. It's like I tried co-sleeping and I would call Paula and I'd ask her, how do you
couldn't
do it?
You couldn't
like I couldn't
lie down
see,
and
it's like all
breastfeed.
interconnected. Like I didn't like sideline breastfeeding.
Breastfeeding,
Like,
yeah.
and I know I was
It
speaking with
wasn't-
another friend. Like it didn't work for me. It didn't
Yeah.
work for her. Like and even sometimes she wouldn't sleep as well in the bed.
Yeah.
So, but it's a mixed bag. Again, it's like what it's so on that day what works in that moment. Sometimes she'd sleep a long stretch in the bed, and sometimes she'd only sleep 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think what you said, Bianca, was really important. Like in the new and Catherine and Dom, it's survival mode.
Yeah.
It's being gentle to yourself, and it's understanding that whether it's your first or your second, it's different, and you need to do what you need to do, and you can read guidelines, you could read books, you can do whatever, but you need to do what works for you and what keeps you sane. And what keeps your family happy. You know what I mean?
but it's like you said earlier that, this too will pass. And I kept reminding myself of that this is temporary. This moment is temporary. This sleeplessness is temporary.
Yeah.
It's going to pass at some point, and
Yeah.
you're going to look back and you might miss those moments,
Yeah.
that co-sleeping, those cuddles when they were skin to skin, like you
Yeah.
mentioned,
Yeah.
or even just them falling asleep on your boob and then like they unlatch and they're just lying there and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
And you hear the sound.
Yeah, it's so precious, At the moment, you're so tired and you don't really, it's
Yeah.
hard to get that perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
So I love that reminder. And like, I find like when you have a strong network, they'll tell you that too. This is all temporary. This is going to
Yeah,
pass,
yeah.
It's
So
just so hard to believe it when you're
I
in it. though.
know,
When
in
you're in
the
the eye of the
moment.
storm.
Yeah,
When
I
you're in the eye of the storm and the storm is not going away and it's there every day, you need to give yourself the tools. You need to, again, help yourself to kind of help the situation.
Yeah.
There's like a hierarchy of needs. And this time around with my second, I realized like if you don't have sleep, like you got nothing. It's like the top of the foundation of the pyramid, and lack of sleep is a form of torture, right?
Of
Sleep
course,
deprivation.
yes,
Of course.
for sure.
It totally is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
slowly being
And
tortured.
I lived it, like I thought with my first one, I lived it, but like I would get 3 to 4 hour increments, but like sleeping, not even a cycle and waking up every 45 minutes, like you can't function.
No.
Like my mental health was really on the line, and then you're not getting out of the house. And then you throw a toddler in the mix, and then you got to get up early for the toddler. And then you've got, this relationship with your husband to manage.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And dividing the tasks and like carrying your weight and be more, in it on your own this time. I found it was much more challenging throwing that second child the second time.
So
around.
let me ask you this. I just had a question while you were talking, and I don't know why I just got like emotional about it. It was really weird. In retrospect now, because you had a really tough time,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
know this because
my
I was
God.
with you. I mean, I wasn't with you physically, but I was on the phone with you. In retrospect now, are you, is it safe to say that, like, you're so proud of yourself? I don't know why I'm crying.
Aww.
No, it's really bad. I think
Let
what she's
it
getting at-
out. Let it out. Let it
There's so much happening.
flow.
What's happening? It's not even my story. But, like, I'm very proud of you.
Aw.
No, but because I sorry. We have to stop.
No, don't stop.
What's
It's okay. He's gonna edit
happening?
it afterwards.
Oh my God. Because I know how much you struggled, and I like I probably would have given up. And I'm just like, you should be so proud of yourself because you persevered. Like, you are a very perseverant person by nature, but like, you held on, and you almost like lost your mind, and I was I was afraid for
It
you,
was-
and I was worried about you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm very proud of you, and I want you to, like, I want to know if now in retrospect you're proud of yourself that you held on, you know?
Maybe I don't give myself enough
Yeah,
credit,
well.
and like that might be a character trait, but to me it's like, I think that's where the motherly instinct kicks in, you know. And I'll just say this, it might be another subject matter, but again, everything's interconnected, and now you know, hindsight's 20/20 vision. Now I sort of know what was going wrong.
Yeah.
And like, my starting point where it all derails is breastfeeding,
Right.
and so now I know that, like, my poor kids
Yeah.
can't get proper sleep because of the breastfeeding.
Okay.
And am I proud of myself? Yeah, because many times in my breastfeeding, sleeping newborn journey, you know, it would have been so much easier to just say, like, well, you know, let's experiment and give them a bottle of formula and see if they sleep better. But I was so hell bent on making breastfeeding work because I wanted to give that to my children. You know, I can't explain it. It's just this, like, motherly,
It was your,
you know, motherly nature that I want to give them. And again, everything kind of lines up at 4 months. You know, the breastfeeding goes better, so the sleep goes better. I'm really proud of myself, but it came at a cost on my family, and I really mean that with a second.
Yeah.
The first one, we're both in it, and you can tag team. You can be like, well, you know, you go in the guest bedroom and you go sleep, and then in the morning I'll take her out on a stroll. She'll sleep in the stroller, and you can sleep. With a second one, when you got somebody else needing to take care of a kid, you never get a break. You can never catch up on that sleep. And so maybe, you know what, with Olivia, it wasn't hard. Olivia being my first, it was as hard. But because I had that sleep recuperation, it didn't feel as hard.
Yeah.
Here I was completely, almost like medically sleep deprived. To the point where, I mean, you'd hear me on the phone, and, you know, I'm not the person, like, you know, who's here today talking. It was, and you got to really, you know, sleep gives you a calm mind, and it gives you, like, good mental health. If you don't have sleep, it affects your mental health, and you can't make good decisions. You can't be the best version of yourself. And it got to a point where you don't want your kids to start seeing you like this. You know, you can't make correct, you know, healthy, mindful decisions.
What does that mean to you? Does that mean, like, getting angry? Does that mean crying?
irritable.
What?
You're obviously, like, think about a baby when they don't have sleep. They're cranky, they're irritable.
Yeah.
You're just like,
Can't regulate your emotions.
you're short fused. Everything is so spread thin. You know, you're pulled in all directions, and you can't. To me, it's like, going back to why we decided to sleep train her at 4 months, and that was such a hard decision on me and my husband. But it was more like I was doing that for my family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You had no other choice.
No,
You had no other choice.
and I remember thinking, like, I'm not going to do this to her, you know, based on, you know, what your view is of sleep training. I'm going to do this for her.
Yeah.
Not to her, for her. I'm going to give her the gift of sleep.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, what I realized is we always found the second, like, really, like, baseline cranky, baseline irritable,
Yeah.
like, constantly, like,
True
something's
that.
wrong, trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the newborn minds, I always say it's not my phase because I feel like I'm just spinning all the time and I'm troubleshooting, and there's a lack of structure. And what I realized is she was always, like, baseline cranky, baseline irritable, because she never had proper
good night's
sleep
sleep.
to actually, like, be herself. And I remember when she got a good night of sleep and we saw her that day or that morning, we're like, hello, baby. Like, this is nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Oh, this is who you are. Oh, I can see your personality now.
Yeah.
But
You
it's
know-
same for you, because if you're baseline cranky all the time and you're not getting the sleep, then they don't know who you really are too.
No,
true.
and you're not the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really delicate, and everything's easier to look back in hindsight and say like, well,
Yes.
but I know when you're in it, and I know the struggle, and you just like you're clutching at straws and you're trying everything, but you do get out of it. You got to give it like minute by minute, day by day, and tying back to what you said, you got to be nice with yourself. Like
Mhm.
you gotta take care of yourself and say like, screw in your mind what you think other moms are doing, or this worked for so and so, why isn't it working for me? Or it worked for
Yes.
my first child, why isn't it working for me? It's like, you know best what you need for yourself,
Mhm.
whether that's in that moment bringing her into the bed.
Yeah.
It's really clutching at straws, trying everything, getting through it, and not feeling bad if you've got to do something to make yourself better to then get like the whole household the whole household
Yeah.
rolling again. And you know what I found really hard was I was spending like no time with my second.
I know.
Your first.
Oh, my first.
Yes,
Yeah.
I understood what you were saying, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
But that's a whole other topic.
It's another topic, but it's true.
survival mode those days.
Mhm.
And whatever the takeaway for me is whatever works, whatever sticks on the walls, whatever works and to get you through it,
Yeah.
like it's A-okay.
Mm.
And I think for me, Paula was getting to like, I'm somebody who's very by the book. And my husband will always say like, I can say it, but you need to hear it from professionals.
Yeah.
And that might be part of my nature. But when I had like a pediatrician tell me, the pediatrician saying like, it's survival mode, whatever it works. And I love what he told me, like when he sees the parents at the 4-month mark for that baby visit, he says like, if you made it to 4 months, you must really love your child. Because you come in as a zombie.
Yeah, you do.
And you're sort of like, why do people do this? Or going back to like, I must be doing something wrong. Or why is so-and-so's kid sleeping and mine isn't? And
Well, thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate you sharing your stories with me. And we'll see you again soon. You've been listening to We've Probably Been There, a podcast by First Moms Club. Follow First Moms Club on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Watch us on YouTube and Spotify, and listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Join us next week for more stories about this roller coaster we call motherhood. Thank you for listening.